Welcome back, everybody, to the Forbidden Mountain. Today, we are specifically joined by the one and only, not one, but two invites to Continentals, Dinh Khang Pham. How are you doing this morning, sir? For you, it's an afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, what's up, guys?
Awesome. Welcome, sir. So, you are probably the most well-traveled Disney Lorcana player. There's a picture in the that's coming up. I think you've now been to 6 different DLCs. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Three
And
European, three NA, I think.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
missed. Did you miss the first one? So Lil, right? Like you weren't playing the game just yet.
Yeah, exactly. I started right after Chicago, which
Okay.
was the beginning of set four, right? And
Yeah, Chicago is the first set four. Yeah.
yeah, I started like in the middle of set four, so I couldn't attend the other ones. Else I would have gone to at least like Chicago and Little.
Yeah. So that's pretty crazy. Now, what is like your background that you're just like, yep, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna travel all these events. I just love Disney Lorcana. Because no, I mean so there were some players that did travel and do one of each in the European run, but most only
Mhm.
did one. Nobody did more than one, as far as I know, from like the American side. But you traveled each month. You're like, nope, we're doing everything. So
Yeah.
what like sparked that for you?
Yeah, so I'm coming from another TCG. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Really competitively before, also quite known in that scene, and also played a little bit of Magic before Yu-Gi-Oh! But just like locals. Yeah, so playing TCG was always a great passion for me. I started, I think, like 2015 with like Magic, and then end of 2015 Yu-Gi-Oh! And it started slow, like only traveling to regions which are like smaller. It's like a bit bigger than set champs basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, just around my home, a few hundred kilometers, like 100 miles max. And yeah, it started like that, and then I started to go to major events, but only in Europe. And it was so much fun to meet people and yeah, meeting new people, making new friends and so on. So that I continued doing so until like COVID. When COVID hit, we couldn't travel anymore. So I was a bit yeah, bummed about that. And right after COVID, I started with a friend traveling to NA for Yu-Gi-Oh events,
Hmm.
because you can um also attend the every major there, like here in
Okay.
like in Lorcana. Just get a ticket and go there. So we started playing that. I quite enjoyed that. So when I started Lorcana, it was like right after I finished some major events in America and Europe. I was like, okay, if I want to start Lorcana, I want to play like every single major I can, because there are also not that many. It was like at that time six were left, right?
Right.
So four were gone. Also, some were overlapping, so I was like six. I can manage six. Um, Also from money standpoint, I can manage the six.
Hmm.
I need to get at least like let it go or something like that. In my
Sure.
mind,
Sure.
I'm like, okay, okay, I need to at least get the let it go to keep myself financially stable,
Sure.
basically, from buying all the tickets. And yeah, that's how it started. So I just decided, okay, I really want to try this game. I had no like experience with that game before when I attended my first DLC, and then I was like, okay, um, I got no ticket. Also, I will try it. And when I Googled the events, like the dates, I saw, okay, DLC Fort Worth was like at that time, I think 2 weeks ago. Like the sale started 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and I just went into the website on PPG, and there was a ticket. I
Awesome.
just pressed buy, paid. I'm like, did I get it? And after I bought, like it was sold out immediately again. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Don't tell
what
anyone
happened?
that because people they don't believe it. That doesn't exist, man.
Yeah, it was at like 2 a.m. here in Germany, because and I was like, damn, because right before that I also had like a motivational speech from another Yu-Gi-Oh player, Hani Jabari. And he told me, yo, you are a really good Yu-Gi-Oh player. You should start this. So like he pushed me, because I always wanted to play Lorcana or One Piece, just because of the pricing. And he just pushed me like, you should start, you should start. And then And that night, I looked into the tickets for Fort Worth, and I got it. And then I was like, okay, it has to be a sign. I have to start. And then I started like, okay, Bochum, Fort Worth, and so on. But in Bochum, funny enough, I really, really hated the format. Like I
Okay,
played there. I didn't even draw that much. I drew twice. It's not that much, right? But I was like, damn, I cannot beat the format. Like I drew twice and I lost twice. Um, and I was like, well, if I perform that bad in Fort Worth, I won't do all NA events. Like I probably only take the EU events because they're easy to reach.
sure.
And yeah, don't commit so much into that game. And suddenly I just went 5-0-1 in Fort Worth because I played against all the Steel songs. I also play against you, right? In
I was
Fort
your
Worth.
fifth duo. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had so many outs for locations, and you played locations,
Yeah,
right? Well,
you're
yeah.
you were my whole strategy in that matchup, you were like, "No, you're not allowed to do that." I'm like, "Okay, you got
Yeah, I
it."
played Hercules, Vitalis, you're like none of that was sticking.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just had a good run in
Mhm.
the top 16, getting the invite. Unfortunately, lost to Ed in the top 16 on stream, so I couldn't get the Mickey. But I was like, damn, I made it.
Yeah.
So I would just continue, trying my best to get both invites. And then after that, TLC Bologna, I had a good run again. No, I didn't. Sorry, I I was throwing a bit. Had one loss already, and I don't like to lose in a two-game format. Like nobody does, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
It's tough
it
to
was
recover
because of my
from.
mistake. Yeah, I was super tilted, and then I just barely made it in the end. My win in against Steel Song, fortunately. And then I made it. Got the second invite. Got paired against Green Steel that had no Shift Diablo, and then I got the Mickey. That was
Wow.
insane.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
at
didn't
that
even know
point, I was
that.
like, I definitely go to every event, even if I don't like get a ticket, I would have gone. You know.
Oh, wow, okay. So you're, at this point now, you started late June, early July, basically is kind of like the time frame. You're already that invested in Disney Lorcana that you're just like, you know what? No, I love the community. Game's fun. If I got to
Yeah,
go play side
yeah,
events, like I'll go play side events. Like that's where we're already at.
exactly.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. I mean, I think like does that speak a little bit to the community itself?
yeah, totally. Like for example, in Yu-Gi-Oh, I only traveled really much to either grind because was a point system to get um into the playoff for Worlds, basically. There's a special playoff, or like major events. And for example, Lorcana right now, I'm traveling a lot
Yeah. Oh yeah,
to
you're
just the smaller
you're like a
tournaments, right?
weekly
Like here.
like plane or train or something.
Yeah, I just traveled to Birmingham. I paid like, I don't know, $400 just for the flight and the tickets itself for 2 days. And I won half cases. And it's not even about the winning. Like even if I didn't win this, it was so much fun and meeting other people because even at that tournament, there were so many people I know um, from past ELCs because they're all actually the top players were quite stacked. Like there were like 6 players who qualified or so. So
Yeah.
that was really crazy. Um, and meeting these people and talking to everybody is so much fun. And up till now, I still had zero uh opponents who were like toxic or like
Right.
salty or whatever. Like everybody was nice, even if they lost really bad or like they got sacked, like
Yeah.
nobody was angry or mad or whatever.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting. You're over there, you guys have such a better third party market, in all honesty. You guys have these tournaments that are consistently like 120 plus players. And for North America, it's very difficult. This past weekend we did have one. Battle of the Bay was successful, thankfully. But it's really like Battle of the Bay and then CCS. Every other organizer that I feel like tries like just doesn't succeed. But even this weekend, Axiom had a really large turnout, which is the one that you were at, right?
Yeah.
And then there was also that For the Lore event that had 140 players. So that's kind of crazy that you guys were spread out in two different areas and still had 120 plus players in each of those
Mm,
events, which is really cool.
I mean, that's in general, like in America, right? Like your country is way too big. Like your country
Yeah,
is like 10 Europes or so. And but that's the thing, right? Even if we have like multiple tournaments in Europe at the
Mhm.
same time, our player base is like more centered, so everybody can make it to events and so on, right? So like in Bologna, there were so many people from other countries,
Right.
from France and Germany and so on. It's quite easy to reach. Even
Yeah.
if you book early enough, it's not that expensive too. So yeah, I can see that people are willing to do that. In America, I got a feeling that people don't like to fly so far, like from
Yeah.
one side to the other side.
It is weird to me, like I flew to all six. Well, actually, I didn't fly to all six, but I went to all six. Some of
Mhm.
them I was able to drive to. But, for me, I was very upset that I just couldn't make the time work out to get over to an EU event. I really wanted to. I just the way they matched up, two of them were on the same day. So it's just like, well, I'm gonna go here because it's here. Like that just makes sense. But I'm hoping next year with season two that they're a little more like I would prefer like 1 month North America, 1 month EU. So like that way you give everybody kind
Mm,
of the opportunity to like, all right, go ahead, we can fly out there and maybe we get 12 events that way, or maybe it's still 10 but they're like spaced a little bit differently. I don't know. I would just like the opportunity, like, okay, in this month I'm going to go with that one, and like it gives me that time to like prepare and plan for it. But I think it's still pretty great that we even had these to begin with. So but it really is the most interesting thing was like the concept of like you just joined the game and you're like, you know what, even if I didn't get a ticket, I have so much fun at these that like I'm gonna go anyway. Like that's great to hear. And you're not like, honestly, anyone that follows you on Twitter, you are one of the most active Lorcana players without a doubt.
yeah,
um yeah.
I think like next year, even like next season, more people will travel to each event. Like, you could see it already in CL. Like in CL, there were so many jumps. I didn't even know them. Like I literally didn't
Yeah.
know them, and they came to me and like, yo, talk to me in German. Like, yo, we also came here. I'm like, damn,
Yeah, I
so
mean,
many.
but that probably had to do with like, hey, this was the last one this year. There is nothing going on, over in Germany this year, like in this month. So I think that might have played a lot to it. I feel like
Yeah.
if there was one in November, like let's just say, this past weekend you went to Axiom, like if Axiom was a DLC, like you might have had Americans fly over for it. It might have
Yeah,
happened
yeah,
just because you're like, well, there's
100%.
nothing going on this month for us, so we're going to travel to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of probably where that was, but it's still great. It's great to see the game even being able to travel, and I think it's nice. But I will agree with you. It feels like Americans are a little less inclined to flying and travel and all those things. So I
Mhm.
totally agree with you. So, sir, you are a Ruby Sapphire extraordinaire. I would say that you are an absolute masterclass of it. Therefore, we're gonna have a little bit chat about Ruby Sapphire. So the first question to me is, you started the game in July. You came in at a pretty good time for Ruby Sapphire in general. It had its moments and matchups that were just so polarizing that like you said, you started 5-0-1 in Dallas and you beat up on a bunch of steel decks. What was that initial draw for you to come in and look at the Ruby Sapphire deck that you're like, you know what, this is the deck that I'm gonna specialize in?
Oh, that's a funny question to answer. And again, that I have to go back to the beginning where I had the talk with the Yu-Gi-Oh guy, my Yu-Gi-Oh friend, and we talked about what decks I should play, and he said the best deck is Green Steel, right? From the Mana Share and
Right,
so on.
like the Buckies.
Um,
At that time, it was
yeah,
Bucky. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Bucky, Diablo, that's the best. And I was like, yeah, okay. But he told me, but play red blue. He just told me play red blue. I'm like, um, I will look into both.
Hmm.
And still didn't grasp all the rules of Lorcana at that time. For example, when I started like testing and so on, um, I didn't even know how singing works. Like the first games, the first I think 3 games, I played without singing. I hard casted how far I go and so on, and I didn't get the singing. At some point, I did get it, and I'm like, oh,
Like,
okay, I
oh,
forgot
this is
this.
this is actually good. Got
Yeah,
it.
because I never read the rules. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to, but I still haven't. I just got it explained once, and like, and then I tried to play it. Like I know you can do Incubus and then play cards out, and
Right,
there's
right.
summoning sickness with ink. Ink needs to dry. I'm like, okay. good enough, I would try it. And then from there on out, I did try and error until I got it. Um, and he told me to play red blue, and I looked into the both decks and tried to imagine what they do because I also have TCG background, right?
Yeah.
I uh, played a lot of Hearthstone 2, Magic, so I had played a fair share of games where you need resources and where decks like aggro, mid-range control exist. In
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh, that doesn't really exist. In Yu-Gi-Oh, basically almost everything is combo.
Right.
Um, there are some control decks, but that's it. Most of the decks are control combo, and but I knew that I don't want to play aggro because I really don't like the gameplay. It's really boring for me, so I never tried to play it. Then I looked into the mid range because mid range is okay, but I looked at the green seal and what it does was always for me like Bucky, play a flop ball, play a flop ball, play a flop ball, and just watch your opponent like losing all their hand cards, which is of course when you win it's fun, but it's only that. It's not more. So of course there's always depth in any deck, even hyper aggro or whatnot, but it's just boring for me.
Yeah.
So I was really into Ruby Sapphire just because of that. And it's also looked like a control deck that has a lake-in option for burn.
Mhm.
And I really like that. So I tested it when I started um building it, or like in that deck, Sisu and Ice from Chicago, like the top list. Played it a bit, realized that some cards were like weird. I mean, this entire Sisu combo is good, but I top decked them or drew them at the wrong time, and then it was really bad. And at that point, I think like after like 10 matches or so, I was like, I cannot play this. It's so too bricky, and it doesn't do. And also, it didn't take red purple like Ruby Amethyst into account at that time because in Chicago it wasn't that successful.
Right.
And in the next DLC, it was DLC Bochum. Red purple was like rampant.
Yeah.
And I predicted that because I tested against Red Purple, and I couldn't do anything. I lost. I simply lost. They played one castle, played second castle, and I couldn't do anything.
Right.
So I kicked the ice blocks immediately. Put in Vitalosphere, put in even like two hecklers at the beginning because I overreacted. At some point, I kicked one because he's breaking. Like he's so bad. He's so bad, but at one, sometimes you draw him. And in this game, especially in Ruby Sapphire, you see a lot of cards because you play like um, Develop Your Brain. I also play Dig a Little Deeper, right?
Yeah.
How Far Go, Tala, Hiram, and so on. And you will see it at some point. And that's why I really enjoyed the deck. You can put in one-offs, two-offs, whatever. And as long as they are not tech cuts for the super early game, you only need one because you
Right.
cycle so fast through your deck, like much faster than other decks in comparison, that you will reach it eventually. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, and then you can use it. And then we also played something like Fishbone Quill means you can also play uninkable tech cards like Calculus. A lot of time I just inked them away with Quill, so it was fine to draw
Yeah.
into
No
him
harm, no
at some
foul.
point. Yeah, exactly. And then the other point of about Ruby Sapphire is just the options I always get when I go like Tala, Develop Your Brain, How Far Go, because most of the time, or not most of the time, let's say 60% of the time, it's quite obvious what you take. You just take the better card, but sometimes you get like two good cards,
Mhm.
and then you have to decide, okay, do I take this and use it now, basically, or do I take this card, which is better in like two turns, and you have to predict that, and sometimes also make an assessment like, okay, what can my opponent have now? How likely is it? And then you have to make a decision based on that. Like it relies heavily on experience and relies heavily on knowledge and prediction. Like it basically you need to put so much of your foundation of your basic knowledge into every single small decision because the deck just gives you so many opportunities to make such a decision. That's what I really enjoy, and that's why I still continue playing it. And at least it was at the beginning. Then I tried to stop playing it because I didn't want to end up as a like a Ruby Sapphire only guy. Like I didn't wanna
Like be
one
typecasted.
trick. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't want to one cast one trick a deck in
Yeah.
this game because this game is still fairly simple because we just don't have enough sets, right?
Yeah.
And
And
let's
there's
say
also, like, I mean, in our large events, like 2 game formats, pretty massive. So if you sit down against an opponent that knows, like, oh, this is Din Pham, like he's playing red blue, he has an
yeah,
advantage because he knows how to
yeah,
mulligan. So
yeah, exactly. Um, that's also kind of disadvantage. Exactly that. Exactly that. I thought about, okay, that's the funny thing. When I played Bochum and I didn't perform, I thought about like, do I even start social media, right? Do I
okay.
do I even start uh, putting myself up as a target and
Hmm.
then update stuff? But I also do want to do coaching and content or whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, okay, let's pull the trigger. I start posting. Of course, when you don't top and you're new into the scene, nobody cares. So my first post was mostly carried by Yu-Gi-Oh players who were seeing it. And then my second post was DLC Fort Worth, right? I got top 16,
Yeah.
got a bit traction. Then I was like, okay, do I stop or no? Because if I stop like presenting myself as a Ruby Sapphire player, nobody will know, right? My
Right.
next DLC, I still try to stay low key, um, like don't tell my name unless they ask me or something. Like don't put the target on my head. And
Right.
every single one knew me. I'm like, okay, okay, I messed that up. I messed it up. Everybody
Yeah.
knew I played Ruby Sapphire, so uh, that was a huge backlash. But still, in the end, still fine. I like to interact with the community and so on.
Yeah, I mean,
Y-
it's one of those. Honestly, just listening how you explained how you even got to the process of getting to Ruby Sapphire, I think it's very clear that you're like, you know what, like this deck is for me. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe you are
exactly.
putting yourself at some minor advantage that your opponent knows how to mulligan, but
Yeah,
if this is the deck that you're best with, and you know that, hey, like I'm probably better than 99.5% of the room that also is playing Ruby Sapphire, I don't really think it's really a disadvantage. Like you don't need to put yourself in a worse position just for a mulligan. So I think it's tough, especially in a world where you even the way you just explained it, you're like, hey, I had this ice block version, and I just realized, like, man, I really don't like this card. How do I
mhm,
take this deck that I love, transform it, be a better into the Ruby Amethyst matchup, and maybe some of the other random crap that's going on, and then say, hey, this is my own. Like I now have been able to say this is my own version of this, and I think you can just tell it. Like you just by the explanation, you're like, hey, like I knew that this is what I wanted, but now I had to figure out how to make it what I wanted. So
yeah,
I think that that's very clear to me. Like, yeah, social media is weird, right? Like if you want to be this person on social media and you're like, do I want to do that? I get it, but at the same time, you're like, listen, if you're informed, if you're successful, and this is how you want to build you, right? Like this is your brand in a way. Like how am I going to build my own brand? Well, the only way to build that is by reinforcement. So
yeah.
it's a weird damned if you do, damned if you don't like thing though, for sure. But
And really interesting is for set 4 to the Bucky, like to the Bucky Rada. I
yeah,
tried playing other decks. I probably should have played another deck in Toronto because I've faced so many purple decks in the top cut, like top 64. It was Amethyst Steel, top 32 was Ruby Amethyst, and top 16 was Ruby Amethyst. And I should have lost, like on average, I should have lost them, but I won every single time. So I was like, okay, still worked out. And ironically, I lost against Sapphire Steel because I bricked
oh
twice basically,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he had the
I remember
nuts.
watching
Yeah,
that matchup. Yeah, I was sitting
yeah,
right
I
in the
had like
audience.
no chance. I had no chance. So
Yeah,
um,
that
that
was
was
the
ironic.
was that the Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
actually making
and for
sure.
set 5, I was like, okay, Daisy comes out. I haven't tested anything yet because of Toronto, right? And
Yeah,
I thought that Daisy might push Ruby Sapphire out, but it was kind of an overreaction because I haven't tested yet.
yeah,
And people told me you have to play the small Sisu, and I already know I don't want to play her because she's unthinkable.
sure.
And everybody like hyped that up, and suddenly some friends told me, "Damn, Ruby Sapphire is insane." In set 5, I'm like, "No way." And then I started testing. I'm like, "Ah, I really wanted to switch, but the deck got Tipo, the deck got Visions. I'm like, oh, this is so strong now.
Yeah,
Because the
yeah.
biggest
I mean,
problem,
you like dig
uh,
through, dig a little deeper. Visions is like, I mean,
yeah,
you're like, woo.
actually, there are different cards. There are actually different cards. You use
Right,
them
right,
differently,
right.
but still, yeah, exactly. And for example, the biggest problem of from set 4 Red Blue or Ruby Sapphire was that you miss turn 2 ramp quite a lot,
Yeah,
and now you barely miss it. And then in the late game, so many times you top deck pass after your initial push got like removed or like stopped with like the first timer towers on. Like
yeah,
you break late game quite often. And now you have the visions and you just go through your deck, go through the deck.
yeah,
Like every single turn, it's like I'm like, damn, I
yeah,
have to keep it. I have to keep it. And then I kept playing it. It was still running well. The daisy was never a problem. Apparently, even if like of course hyper aggro is a problem, but that should lose to Steel. But Amber Steel, for example, plays Daisy and so on. First, that makes their matchup against any mid-rangey deck or like aggressive deck really bad because you are just giving them ink, right?
yep, yep,
And against you, even if they start with like Daisy Piglet, it's still not fast enough if you ram into your 7 cost wipes like Scar or
yeah,
at that time Scar or B Prep,
yeah,
then you are still fine because they are stuck at 14, have no characters, and at that point you just spot remove everything, or like be prep again, uh, or like Sisu, whatever.
yeah,
And it was fine. It was in the end, it was fine. So yeah, I still kept playing it. Now for set 6, it got even more insane. We got more support. We got uh, the what's called again? Sail the Azurite Sea.
yep,
Insane card. I don't know why they make that inkable. I don't know why they make Visions inkable, and then they give the something like the Scar for 2 that the 5 cost Scar, the set champ promo,
yeah,
make them uninkable for no reason.
yeah.
Like so weird.
Yeah, you guys got some bangers. At Sell the Edge Seeds. I mean, that card's just like unreal. Like, I just,
Yeah, cards are unreal.
yeah, oof. You're gonna be playing that one for a while for sure. But speaking of Salary right C, right? So you just came off your an event this weekend. You started 0-2 in the tournament, which is
Yeah,
not
unfortunately.
common for you, right? Like, but you lost the same matchup twice. You know, coming off that weekend, I'm sure you know you're traveling home. You're thinking about thinking about that matchup and things. What is the key factor that you saw in changes this weekend? You're like, wow, like all right, this is a different version of this Emerald Amethyst deck, right? Like it got a lot of tools. I mean, that deck's probably like 16 to 20 cards different than it was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So what was your takeaway from that event saying like, okay, like this is my deck, this is what I've been tooling it for, this is what I've been preparing for Continentals with, like how do you now approach that hump that you're like, man, I can't believe I started 0-2 in this tournament.
Um. Okay. First, I have to acknowledge that it was a best of 3 format, and for
Okay.
Continentals, we only need to play the 2 game format, right?
Hmm.
Um, uh, I need to deviate a quick bit from the original question. So
Yeah.
2 game
Yeah.
format, best of 3. I don't care about both. Like as a competitive player, you should always play whatever format you're given. Of course, you can like or dislike format, but to be honest, I actually don't care. Like if next year DLCs are best of 3, I play best of 3. Like I
Sure.
don't complain. Like I just play them, and I will try my best to compete in them. But the main difference is, besides dice roll and so on doesn't matter, is in 2 game format. What I like a lot is you don't necessarily lose against your worst matchup.
Right.
That is like a big upset for me. Meaning at in the Continentals, I'm pretty sure I can 1-1 green purple, and that's good enough for me because I can 2-0 all the steel decks,
Right.
which will be plenty, right? Amber steel and green steel
And even
can
I mean,
win
now
that.
even you're seeing upticks in Sapphire Steel and Amethyst Steel again too.
Exactly. And even like Amethyst steel, I can beat that. And because it's significantly slower than Amethyst Emerald, but
Yeah.
still. So I can beat these decks. I don't know yet if I really wanna play Ruby Sapphire at the Continental because
Sure.
there are many aggressive decks now, but just the difference, like 2 game format is vastly different just because of that. Like even against, for example, in Birmingham, I played against 2 hyper aggro, and I draw one of them,
Yeah.
and I lost against one, I think. Yeah, I lost against one and I drew against one. Was totally fine, right? Um, In a best of three, I would have lost twice, so that would be also devastating. But that's why I think, or like that's have you have to acknowledge that, and so now you can decide: do I want to build my deck in a way that I can 2-0 green purple, or is a 1-1 enough? Because
Yeah.
you can build your deck in a way that you can secure your 1-1 easily,
Mhm.
or you can build your deck there where you can potentially, not even 100%, but potentially beat green purple in on the draw. But that also means that you will sacrifice win percentage in other matchups if you
Right.
do something like this. So every single time, assuming we stay at 60, right? Um, we have a base deck of 60 cards, and if you put text for one matchup, you have to sacrifice another matchup, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's just a
always
meta
like
it's a
this.
meta game prediction, right? You're just like,
Yeah,
what do I believe I'm
the
gonna
meta
see
call.
twice in a day? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can predict whatever you want. In the end, it can be still uh you meet zero of your predicted decks. Like I have friends that met zero red blue. They tagged for red blue in CL, saw zero, even though it was like one of the highest meta share, right?
Yeah, it was
Other
like
guys try to
20%.
tag for green steel, saw zero green steel, stuff like that. It always happens. Like it's so random because in the end, the meta share is always like max 20% or like 23%
Yeah.
or so. That's not high
Yeah,
for a deck.
yeah. It's very difficult to get above 22% in this game.
Yeah, so that means you can face everything, and one time everything, like even like one deck only twice, stuff like that happens. So in the end, you still need to make the meta call. What you like, the data doesn't actually matter in my opinion. Um, I just have to make the decision now. How hard do I want to attack against green purple? Because in the end, nobody can tell me if I face 0, 1, 2, or 3 green purple.
Right.
Um, Even the math, like if I get a data sheet, let's say um, whatever Lorcana player that attends the Continentals is playing, even if I know that, even if I know there will be 18%, 20%, what does it tell me, right? What does 20, 25% tell me? What does these numbers tell me? It won't help me because in the end, I can still face 0
Yeah.
in Swiss and then face in top 16. But if I face 0 in Swiss and then I overtake for that deck and then suddenly I lose because suddenly I lost against Amber Steel
Right,
or
like, you
like
didn't
the
like,
mirror
it
match, you know?
it doesn't matter if you don't get to the top 16, right?
Yeah, so it's like more like you need to make an educated guess and decide. It's risk management. I always call it risk management. You have to decide to go this or this way, and both have their advantage and disadvantages. The data won't help there. The only thing that helps is knowing what people are potentially playing in their list, and then you can like tag against that. For example, if I know all Emerald Amethyst is definitely playing the Merfolk Banzai, something like Queen of Hearts is really good because
Right,
that's a
right.
early game removal for both. Like it's one card, you trade both. They gained only 4 law of that play, and you can even continue ramping. For example, if you're on the play, you can still ramp on 2 because Merfolk haven't quested yet, and then you can start punching it in turn 3. In turn 4, you will punch into the Banzai, and that's really good. So
Yeah, and,
that's something.
honestly, most no 0 aggro players are respecting Queen of Hearts.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot
0.
respect it. You cannot respect it. You cannot play around it. You just
Yeah.
have to hope they don't draw it, right?
Right, well,
Um,
you have to hope they're not playing it even.
yeah, exactly. And that's something you can take, and then that's what I'm thinking about right now. Like I lost to the green purple to twice, right? The first loss was I had no ramp on 2, so I just simply lost.
Wow. I mean, in
And
this
the
day and
second
age,
game,
whew, this
yeah,
day and age, you don't have ramp on 2, it's not a good day.
and I think the second game I missed it too, and this third, yeah, I missed something. I forgot about it. No, I got it, but after that I had no play, so it was a really slow hand. And the second loss was I missed ramp all 3 games. I'm like, how? How does that happen? I mulliganed for 6. I activated develop your brain, and I still missed it. I'm like, what happened? I still won one
Whew.
game. So in
Yeah,
a 2-game format, it would be at least a draw,
yeah.
but it was really close. You can miss ramp if you're on the play. That's still okay-ish. But if you're on the draw and you miss ramp or you miss like Queen of Hearts or whatever, you lost. If they start fast, of course. If they start with the Merfolk Banzai or double Merfolk, something like this, and then you just
Yeah.
simply lost. You cannot do anything against it. And yeah, my takeaway right now is either to take heavier, which you can do, of course. You can find spaces to fill in more Queen of Hearts and so on, or I just say, okay, I will take a bit, not too much, and I don't want to sacrifice too many other matchups,
Yeah.
and then I just take the draw. That's my takeaway because I play two-game format. But if you're playing a best of three, you should either build really heavily for it because you actually need to win on the draw, right? If you lost the dice roll, you need to win on the draw twice. At that point, you can also say,
Well, you
let's
need to
play
win
four
at
Queen
least
of Hearts.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just play four Queen of Hearts and increase the chance to see it to the max. Worst case, still inkable, so that's still fine. You can do that and just rush the characters down and to reach the game state where you can actually uh, rem play your bigger characters, where you remove the genies, right, with Sisus, or maybe you play Shark Mario and then you can trade into the genies and so on.
Yeah.
And after that, just continue play around the Gogo Tamago, and then you should get there. And that's something people have to decide for themselves. Whatever tournament depends on what tournament you're playing. For me, I only concentrate on Continentals right now,
Yeah.
and that's why it's a bit different.
Yeah.
For example, I also coach people for the LCQ. They play the best of three,
Yeah.
and they have to win every single one. So
Yeah.
that is so much harder than the two-game format main event. Like it's extremely hard. Like I wouldn't even like believe that I can make a 5-0 so easily there.
It's I was talking about this yesterday with one of my students where I said in this year there's only one event all year that I started 5-0 in. So like
Mhm.
when you really put that into concept, you're like, yeah, like I've had a successful year this year, but like there's only one tournament that I started 5-0 in, and you're like, man, that's all you get. Like it's that or nothing, you know. So like
Yeah, it's really
it's not
difficult because you
easy
can
to
also
start
get
5-0.
a bad matchup, right? So
Yeah, and in Lorcana, it's such a diverse metagame that
mhm.
if you get to round 4 and it's like, oh well, there it is. Like
Yeah,
let's hope that they
for
brick,
such
you
kind of
know.
format, you need to probably tech heavily into into
Mhm.
aggressive decks, mainly because you just don't know if you will face the aggressive decks, and if you do, you need to beat them. There's no like, yeah, I can lose this or draw this and go to the next one. I can still top
Right.
whatever. No, you're out. You're
Like
out.
yeah, you're just
So
done. Like that's it. There's your
yeah,
hopes and dreams.
yeah, exactly. So
Mickey,
you have to
Mickey
tech
with the
heavily
you
for
can dream
that.
it, you can do it. It's over. Like
It's so cruel. Like it's so hard.
yeah.
It is so hard.
I do want to quickly pitch for, that whole segment of you just literally developing the concept of playing a Queen of Hearts as and all the reasons why you would or wouldn't and the difference of like the two game three. This is the epitome of why you have a master class. Uh
All right.
so this was a set 5 masterclass, but I'm sure a set 6 one might be coming, who knows. But there's other ways they can get you on Metafy. Like that was a very brief segment about a conversation. You just talked about how you have coaching sessions, everything like that. What is what we you kind of touched on this, saying like, hey, you wanted to coach, you wanted to do these things. Like what is it like for you, and for someone that would go on, click the link in the description and say, oh, let me check out what he's doing. What do you like, what is your favorite part of doing that? And like that feeling, for me, I love the feeling of when a student comes and goes, man, I won my set championships, like stuff like that. Like what kind of vibes are you getting from now being this coach and this like figure in the community because of it?
Yeah, so the first thing, the master class, I will update it now for set 6, like actually now I'm working on it. So there will be set 6 included. I will update it probably even further after my continentals, of course, when I can show everything off.
Yeah.
And yeah, then it will be like, I don't know, it will be probably set 6 full, like complete update in there. Um, right now, I don't really see myself making an extra set 6 masterclass because there's not much. Like, the deck doesn't really change. I mean,
Yeah.
um, there's some, of course, you can always tech and so on, then it change a bit, but the concept is always the same. The matchup dynamics are same.
Yeah.
Some matchup dynamics are a bit different now because the deck got faster, but that's not that far. Um, yeah, and coaching. Um, I did coaching in Yu-Gi-Oh! I started just to make some money extra,
Mhm.
right, for the travels and so on. And I really realized really quick that I like teaching people how to play the deck because I also realized how um how much the players get certain things like just wrong. Like they're not bad, they're just uninformed, I would say.
Right. Right.
Because TCG is like there's no real talents. It's only about critical thinking and so on, or like having the experience on how to think like that. Because it's like you don't need a high IQ or whatever or for a TCG. Everybody can learn it and everybody can master it. It's only about time or about that someone shows you how to get there. And yeah, many people I know, not only my students, but students from other pro players, they got fairly successful really fast
Yeah.
because of that. So I can see the value in that. And people always keep telling me how it helped them, how it improves and their enjoyment in this game in general, because suddenly now they are also winning. Of course, you can always have fun without winning, but they're also winning more consistently or like getting their plays more consistent or
Yeah.
whatever they want to do with the deck or with other decks, of course, besides Ruby Sapphire. Like they can actually play it out. They can actually manage to do whatever they see in the streams at the DLCs, right? Get to
Yeah.
these game states, actually playing the decks at a level where other players are playing that deck. And I really enjoy seeing that and hearing the feedback and making people happy in that regard, that they can actually play the deck. And another motivation is also, of course, pushing my social media numbers too by just offering stuff like this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just putting myself out there to be known as a good player. It's always a nice feeling for yourself, right? A bit for your ego, let's say that. Um, and yeah, in the end, I can always try to help, even in real life. Like when I see people are playing, and like Ruby Sapphire, and I always ask them like, "Do you want to talk about this?" Like after they finish the match, I ask them like, "Do you want to talk about this?" Most of people say, "Yeah, of course." And then I ask them like, why did you do this and this?" And they
Yeah.
explain to me, and then I give them like a little coaching on the tournament side, basically. Like, yo, you should think about this and this before you make such a decision. Don't play that fast and so on. And then they're like, oh yeah, you're right. Thank
Yeah.
you. And that's always really cool to see. And
Yeah.
suddenly they just do much better play next time.
Yeah,
And
it's there's like a fine line between just taking a breath, you know. I always feel like a player gets its opening, goes in its turn, and if the first thing you're supposed to do in the turn is draw a card because like that's just like what your deck does. Very often you have your hand, so you know your whole play. So you're all like, all right, I know what I'm going to do this turn. So they'll play their card, they'll draw their card, and that card so often doesn't affect the rest of the turn, even though it could be like a critical difference in it. And it is just that quick pace of like, hey man, like take all your information. Every time you get new information, like
Mhm.
you gotta like just sit there for a moment and go, okay, what is this change? How does this change the turn? Which is also why we preach like, hey, if you're gonna draw cards, do it first.
Yeah, exactly. That's like so many fundamentals that you need to know even to play such a quote unquote simple game, like in comparison to the other big TVGs, right? Um, you need to know the fundamentals and how to build and what to do and how to analyze game states to make the best plays, because since the game doesn't allow crazy combos right now or whatever, that means like both players only have this small of a margin to do stuff, and if
Yeah,
you mess it up at some point and the other player doesn't do it, then they will get the edge and win
Yeah,
against you. And that's how I also see like most of the successful Lorcana player are coming from other TCGs, right? I do you know right now someone who just started Lorcana just without any TCG knowledge?
that's
And
like
and it's like,
that's like super successful.
yeah.
Um,
I know
no,
some that have like
not
one top or so,
particularly.
but yeah,
Yeah, like most players come from something. Like most of like the very well known successfuls are they come from something.
yeah,
So
that
yeah,
gives
hard
you
to
like a
say.
huge edge. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
and
always catch up, right?
experience is king in
Uh,
the end. Like it doesn't matter the game, right? Like in the end, like you said earlier, like, you've played so many games that you don't even need to read the rules. You're just like, yeah, I get it. Like I understand how tempo works and how like you just understand. It's very difficult to teach that to people. Like
yeah,
I say this to my wife all the time. Like she gets so frustrated. She'll go to a tournament. She's like, oh, like I went 3-3, and I'm like, that's not that bad for someone that's never played a card game before. Like
yeah,
you're still 50%. Like that's insane. But it's really difficult, I think, in general. Like, you just can't beat experience. Like time and experience, you can't beat those things. Like they just
yeah.
exist.
I mean, that's why coaching exists, and
Yeah.
the coaches actually need to be really careful there because many when they coach, they start like directly into things where you actually need that knowledge already. Like it's
Yeah.
a prerequisite, and it doesn't work that well for these
Yeah.
players.
I I
So
find myself asking as many questions as they do sometimes because it's like
yeah, exactly.
when they're like, "Oh my god, did you see this thing?" And you're like, "Okay, like before I give my judgment, why do you think it's good?" Like
Yeah,
because you need to get that understanding. You need to have like I need to know why how they think and why they think that way so I can explain to them why I think differently. Because
yeah,
it's
exactly.
everyone
Like
it's tough, it really
yeah,
is.
it's different, right? Even like between pros, some pros
Yeah.
would do another play because they value other things, but
Right.
in the end, it's like it depends always on like what your opponent have in the end, because in hindsight you can always say, yeah, this was a better play, but sometimes you cannot tell. And
Yeah.
then of course making this or that call is sometimes better, sometimes worse. But
Yeah.
in
I
general,
compare
right
I
now,
compare it a lot to poker odds too. It's like, well, what are my
yeah,
odds? Like sometimes
yeah,
I just gotta bet, like
yeah.
sometimes I
Sometimes you
just gotta
even
bet
bet on
on it.
the lesser odds, like
Yeah.
sometimes you do it.
Yeah. Sometimes and it's not easy to tell people that either. It's like, I get it. You're designed to believe that like on turn 5 they have Maui. Well, sometimes you gotta play like they don't.
Yeah,
You just gotta do it,
sometimes you have to, and then but if they don't have it, you're winning. But
Right.
odds if
Yeah.
they have it, it's quite high because they play 3 or 4, so
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to
It's
gamble sometimes.
a lot of the times those come down to, well, I might lose the game if they have it. So like the only way I can win the game is if I just play like they don't.
Mhm.
That is that.
Yeah. And overall, I think the community has still like the overall community has still much much to learn about the TCG itself, because the average player still in this game in comparison to other games is of course not as experienced, just mainly
Right.
because they are just starting out. So with more content, more, yeah, I don't know, more opportunities and so on, surely even the DLC I think will get more difficult, because right now the pros are like really topping. Like if you look at the uh any leaderboard, like the pros are like having 3, 4 tops, right? It's like
Yeah.
kind of crazy in this. Even the people are always 2 game formats too random. Even good players are saying that, and there's so many good pro players that have like multiple tops. 4 is the maximum right now. I think I was the first one to reach it because I had the time advantage in Birmingham over
Sure.
the NA guys.
Sure.
And then it was Bivens, Zach Bivens, because he went 5-0, so technically he
Yeah.
had it safe, right? And then after that, Dale and Dan and so on. So yeah, only 4 is the max, but still it's like insane when you hear it, right? In a 2 game format.
Yeah.
Uh there are so many, like I think there are like 8 players or 9 or so who has 4 tops right now.
Yeah.
So it is possible to reach that consistency. And I think also when we get actually like insane content where these concepts get explained,
Hmm.
then the community will get like improve a lot in a short time.
Yeah.
But actually,
Well,
I myself, I don't know how to do it.
those that want to get better will get better.
Yeah, exactly. But I told myself I don't even know how to do that. Like teach people stuff that you learn in thousands of hours of TCG and
Yeah,
or at least hundreds. And it's really
it's
difficult
hard.
because
It is difficult.
yeah.
Especially like in this game, like at the end of the day, like you said earlier, the game is so young at the end of the day. There's only what 1,200 cards that we have to choose from, but there's still these moments that at every tournament you're still learning. Like even though you might be a master at that a deck, you're like, hey, there's still these decision points that come that didn't happen before. So now it's
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah,
still learning those decisions as we go along.
yeah.
So
Sometimes just a simple mistake like questing wrong or like not questing at some turn because you thought, oh, it's better to keep this body up and hope they don't trade, but in the end, like they wouldn't never trade because they also want to quest or sing.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
these kind of small mistakes will sometimes decide the entire match, and
yeah,
yeah, that's the difficult part to figure out. But yeah, let's see what happens next season. I
yeah,
hope they will make more events so people can actually play Lorcana way more and enjoy the game because right now playing Locus is cool, but there's not much incentive besides the stores who are giving extra packs, right? Extra
yeah.
displays and so on. And we need like a program there to push people into playing.
I agree.
And
There's got to be more incentive for the stores, and honestly, like
yeah.
I don't know. I know for us, for me locally, it's very difficult for Lorcana to break in on like a weekly scene because of how successful older games are, like Magic, Pokemon,
Mhm.
and Yu-Gi-Oh. Like those three games, even One Piece, like those games are just like that's so much of the local games stores schedule already that it's very difficult for them to go, oh, we can commit 8 hours on a Saturday to a Lorcana tour. It's not easy. Like it's it's actually very rare from where I am. So we need some more incentive for the stores to go, really for the stores to even believe that, oh, you know what, people are going to come, they're going to show up for this. Because if,
Mhm.
if if they do a Pokemon tournament, like people are going to come to the Pokemon tour, they already know they have the audience. So I
Mhm.
think that for us, like getting like a little bit more in the out of the league kits, I think would go a long way. Just something for the stores to believe in. But I do want to move on a little bit here because I don't want to kind of gloss over some of these things. But we talked about this a little bit. So 7 games, 7 rounds of Swiss into the 2 game format, into a top 16, best of 3, into a top 5 in the finals. You said it yourself. 2 game format. You don't care. It doesn't matter. The only question I have for you over this particular tournament, because I do think that Continentals is slightly different than DLC. The 2 game format presented into the 7 rounds does mean that there are players that will start 3-0 and then have the ability to draw for 4 rounds and be in top 16. How does that make you feel?
I so it kind of gives a bad taste for some people in the mouth, but for me, I've always think the format is given and I have to accept it. Like we cannot change it. We can complain how much as we
Sure.
want. I will also complain like about it later after the season and give like a list of improvements that
Right.
can be made and so on, right?
I really
But right
wish we
now,
got
like
surveys. Don't you wish we got surveys like if like
we
Fanfinity
do
and
have surveys.
PPG?
We have surveys on MIDI, right? So
I
well,
don't
I
ever
think it's on
recall.
MIDI itself, right? No,
Did,
but
did,
yeah, yeah.
like PPG, I don't know. I've never gotten a survey from PPG saying like what
Okay.
could we do better? Does Fanfinity do them?
Uh, so things like it almost doesn't matter because PPG and Fanfinity cannot do anything about it. It's Disney who
No,
decides
but
and runs the
like
order.
if
But
there's like, hey, listen, if 2,000 people fill out a survey and you have
I might
literal record,
think they do it after the season. Like I
yeah,
think
hopefully,
they will do it.
hopefully,
Yeah, hopefully. But overall, the 2 game format in a continental is actually more difficult than in the DSC.
oh yeah, the margin for error is very minimal. I mean,
Yeah.
you
So
start 0-2,
technic yeah, technically, if you play against a player with the same skill level, you would draw.
yeah,
Um, but of course, we are playing a card game. There are so many other factors: your
yep,
draws, your hands, your mulligans. You can't just draw bad and or like your opponent draw bad, or you get a lucky matchup and so on. And even though many players like oh sorry, most players qualify through DLC or like the right? They have to show some skill at some point.
Yep.
But still, there are still a difference between each player, like between the players, and in terms of skill level. There's
Yep.
still margin that you can get an edge on. So I think that part is still okay. The 3-0 thing, though, I don't think anybody will will stop at 3-0 because you still want the
Seating.
higher seed
Yeah.
for top 16, right? Because Worlds is top 8. So
Yeah.
anything after that is a bonus, but you want that Worlds ticket. And to get that, you cannot stop playing at 3 wins because then you will end up, I don't know, 13th, 14th,
Right.
12th place or so. And then you are on the draw in the best of 3, which is also really bad in the end, right? So people will try to push it. And I don't think anybody will stop at 3. And
Yeah. So you
that's
you
the thing.
you just think that like in the end, the only reason you're playing in the event, I mean, aside from being invited, is that we're playing for Worlds. So
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, you can do this. I personally still have a sour test the idea that you could not play in half the tournament and make top 16. I don't think that that's a good like functional tournament format. So like that's my biggest takeaway, but I
Yeah.
do agree that in the end the only thing we're playing for is the top 8. Like everything past top 8 is just incredible, but getting the Worlds invite knowing that hey, Worlds is only going to be 16 players, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
To be one of those 16 players is obviously that's the benchmark.
Also, we don't know how many are actually drawing or not. So as long as nobody sits down and actually calculates everything out, every potential scenario, drawing on like 304 is really risky. Like if many people are doing it, you can't just not make it.
Well,
That's
it
really
depends
risky.
how many actually can, but I do believe the math has been done from a couple credible sources, and they're like, no, if you start 3-0, you can just be like, I'll finish 15th. Like, it's like, okay,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, but many people will go 304 then in that
yeah,
point, and then it's risky, right? So,
yeah, it just depends on how many. What so it's 128 players, so 128 to 64 to 32. So,
but on the
uh,
other hand, we have to also acknowledge, let's say, if someone goes 4-0,
yep.
I also think they deserve it. Like they went
Oh yeah,
4-0 in a format
no,
where
yeah,
you
like
cannot
I
lose
I
once.
do think that to me it's the breaker of half the it's more than half the tournament. That's the breaker. Like
Yeah.
I totally support like, hey, listen, if it's an 8 round tournament and you start 6-0 and you go draw the last round, you earn that. Like there's no doubt about that. But when you start talking about I'm drawing more rounds than I actually won, then
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, like hold on, guys. Like hold on.
But it's also the fault of the numbers, right? So we're
Yeah.
playing 7 rounds of 2-game format for only 96 players. That's not much. Like,
Yeah, for EU, yeah.
yeah, and compared to a DLC where we play way less rounds than we should, which is 9 for
Right.
2K players,
Right.
that is insane. And
Yeah.
that's why, like, if we played like, I don't know, 11 rounds,
11 rounds.
you
Yeah.
can also go like 506 probably and make it in the 2K event. So that's the
Uh
thing.
I don't know. 506 might be cut. It depends on the cuts.
Yeah, but many
Yeah.
people will lose too. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if the max worth, but if you had more rounds, you can also like play less. It's always like that. But
Yeah,
here in this
I
case, we have 96 players for 7 rounds,
yeah.
2-game formats. It's quite yeah.
It's you're gonna have
It's,
to be, realistically, I think in order for you to feel comfortable, 14-2 is the only option, right? Like once you get into that third loss, you're in the gray area of you're just probably bubbling in most cases.
you mean
Um,
in
like
the main?
if you start the event 0-2, like you got to run hot like basically the rest of the way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
I think you should
there's not even a debate. You're
win
like,
5 times,
I
I
got to
think.
win the next 5 to even be in contention.
Yeah, yeah. But
So
getting O2 is also
in 7
something.
rounds, it's gonna feel rough.
Uh,
What are your are you excited about any of these particular prizes in general aside from the
I
world's
really
invite?
like the invite to the ball. Like I know
Okay,
they like to do like the 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 word games, right? This
yeah,
and a whole new world for world as
yeah.
a invitation card, right?
It's
That's really
beautiful.
cool.
Yeah,
Else, I really like the Baymax because the new card, the
yeah.
Cusco, I don't know. Okay, Cusco is fine because Cusco is really popular,
I
but
like the
Elder's
Cusco, I like
Palace,
the Art of Cusco, but I do agree that it's like, man, that card has fallen super out of favor.
yeah, and the Elder's Palace is like I don't know, it doesn't really have flavor too. I
It's
don't really
very
like that.
weird. The art is cool, like, it does look cool,
Yeah.
you know? There's that. But yeah, I love the Baymax more than ever now. I think that the card's pretty cool. I like that it's a legendary that's now getting this, like, prestigious moment. And I think people are now even finding ways to play it, which is kinda cool.
Yeah, you can actually
Well,
play it. You can
yeah.
even actually play it to play around Goku
Right.
Tamago if you want to
Right,
a
right,
bit.
right.
Gaining lore and healing, that works.
That's
It's
cool.
not bad. It's not entirely useless.
You're playing in the Cross Continental Challenge. Your first round was against Bivens. Your second round, I think, is later today, I think.
Yeah, in a few hours against Zan.
Okay, cool. So, what's the experience been for the Cross Continental Challenge?
Yeah, cross-continent chance, so the timing was really bad. Pavel
Yeah, I
wanted to
agree.
do this right at the start of set six just to have it set six.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it doesn't need to be. Like, we don't
Yeah,
need to be
I
the
think it should have
deciding
waited
factor.
till after North American Continentals. I really do.
European. After European is fine because then you
Well, I
can.
mean, I guess, but it still feels like you would still have that, like, you guys have that weird position where you're like, well, I don't want to give away everything from my Euro deck. I think North America would be the same way. Like, Euro would come out and you'd be like,
Yeah,
well,
but you can take at least then you can take the Eurodex as an
yeah,
American
that's
and
true.
then play with
That's
the
true.
Eurodex, which is way more
I
teched out
definitely
than
think it would
whatever
have
we
been
have this.
better. It would have been
Yeah,
better if to wait no matter what. I just
yeah,
think
yeah,
that,
of
like,
course
if
it
you
was.
wanted all bets off, you get all the information out there and you say, "Hey, here's the 16 people that are gonna do this." Like, waiting till after NA would have been fine to me.
Yeah,
But I
but in the
agree,
end,
like, if you look at this deck list, some of them are like, well, you could just tell that, like, that's
yeah.
just, like, the minimal amount.
I mean, okay, so firstly, Pavel did it like, yeah, but he just did it, right? Does it for free. He just do
Yeah.
it, so totally fine. Like I'm not
Oh,
complaining about
yeah.
that. But yeah, you can see it. Like I talked with Zach during the play. I told him, yo, it's literally my set five list. I put four sales in, and he
Yeah.
said, yeah, I did the same. I took my set five list. I put four Plutos in, and I was
Yeah.
done. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, like, that's
uh,
it. That's what we did.
that's it. Like so many players did it. Like any European players, I think none of the European players actually played their realist or like at least not their full power or whatever, not
Yeah, I'm
showing
not
everything.
shocked at all.
So yeah, that's the kind of bad. Because right now I also kind of I'm not motivated to play the tournament at all because I'm playing like this list.
Right, right, like,
But
you're just playing a list that's not you're not actually like, you're getting a minimal amount of information from, and it's cool to sit across from, another player that you probably respect in some manner. So,
yeah,
like, that's all great and dandy, but it's like you said, this is not you would rather spend an hour testing your deck for Continentals. I totally agree to that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So right now I'm still happy to play against Dan, of course. Playing against the best player in the world is always nice.
Yeah.
And but afterwards, like next week, for example, I don't think I will because I'm also traveling quite early to the Continental, but I don't think I will play it. So
Yeah. Which
like
is fine.
my sub has to
There is
play
that too,
it.
like, because this is what if it's 4 rounds or something? It's 4 rounds, right? So it's definitely difficult to say, "Hey, for over here in America, we have holiday this week." So, like, that I think that's why there's so many games being played. I think while we're recording this, so there's, like, 2 games going on. So, like,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot there's just a lot being packed in to a short week and then EU Continentals. There's just a lot going on. So I do think you'll probably see it delayed, but all in all, I think it's cool that, like, the community is getting it, which is great. I wanted to give you an opportunity. We did a really great job of this already, but if people need to follow you, they can follow you on Twitter. They can follow you on Metafy. Two great resources. I love, you're one of those guys that just, like, you're very honest in your tournaments, and you're very like, hey, this is how it's going. This is what's going on. This is the matchup. Like, I think it's great. For me, for even as me, like, I can go and follow. Like, oh, let's go see what Fam's doing today. Like, how's this day going?
Yeah.
So definitely a great place to follow you over there. Metafy, yeah, you have a lot to offer from your Metafy. Honestly, like, there's a lot
Yeah,
of different things that you have
I'm
going
kind
on
of
there.
also I'm not fully booked out, but I cannot also take off my entire time
Yeah,
coaching because I need to test a lot. Like right now,
yeah,
I'm concentrating more on testing than coaching. But
Yeah,
of course, if you message me and talk with me like about what you actually want to do and what you want to achieve, then we can schedule something or figure something out. But yeah, most of the time right now I'm testing
yeah,
rather than coaching. Also to get more information, of course.
very fair. Any final farewells before we get out of here, sir?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I always wanted to be in the VS. When I started Lorcana, I watched every single podcast, everything single source of information I got. I still do. Um, but yeah, I always wanted to be on these kind of podcasts and videos. So now I am, and I'm really happy about it. Thank you.
No, man. Thank you for taking up the time and kind of chatting about honestly Ruby Sapphire and the Continentals. I think that as a player that's qualified for both, you you have a lot of stock in them. So I think it's important for people to hear that, like, hey, in the end, the format is the format, and we're just to show up and play. You know,
Oh, one more thing, one more
go
thing,
for it.
because people ask me that a lot. The difference between the skill difference between NA and U doesn't exist. And I
Okay.
don't care what people say. It doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter because the players who don't have the knowledge that the the TCG pros have, they will lose against us on average. It doesn't matter. And if they are good, most of the time it's like the same level.
Hmm.
Like there's no significant skill gap between the regions from what I've experienced. And I mean, I experienced 6 DLCs, right? And
Yeah.
3 in Europe, 3 in, and I can say that confidently. Um, some people might be biased because they faced many bad players, and then they say, ah, NA is worse or U is worse. But if they are
I
bad, it
I
doesn't
don't know
matter
that I
where
would
they're from.
ever. I don't know that I would ever like specifically say that it's bad. I would specifically say that it's different, and I think all the data showcases that. In all honesty, even this week, you had two very large events in the game, like two 140 plus player events, and if you really look at the metagame from both of those, they were very different.
Yeah,
So
but
it like
it
as
depends
an
on
NA
what
player,
everybody's playing, right?
yeah, like as an NA player traveling to EU, like the group of guys that are going over, to me it's very weird for them because they got to test with the information given of like, hey, you guys don't favor emerald steel, you favor emerald amethyst. Like there's just like these tractions that are very different between like just the community base, in all honesty. So
Yeah.
I think that's the real key, is that in the end we're just playing different metagames on average, so I think that's what's really cool about it.
Yeah, but in the end, like I prepare my decks or like myself for every deck. The only deck that I ignore is literally hyper aggro, which I have to
Mhm.
do with Ruby Sapphire. But the rest, I always have a plan for them. I prepare myself for them, and I tech for each deck, and that's it. Like I have that in mind, so I don't care when I played both DLCs, and I
Yeah,
played the same list in Fort Worth and Bologna,
yeah,
and Fort Worth I got top 16, Bologna I got top 8. It doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
And in my opinion, it doesn't matter as long as you are prepared for the decks. For the different matters in some way, like having a game plan, having knowing what to mulligan, knowing what to ink, knowing what the end goal of your matchup should be, and then it's fine.
I agree. Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you so very much for joining me this morning and your afternoon. Good luck in your game later, and of course,
Thank you.
definitely good luck in EU. I look forward to following the Twitter post about it because it's cool. For me, I really wanted to go uh, to Paris, but they just released the information way too late for me to
Oh
commit.
yeah, yeah,
20 days is just like that's just not enough.
yeah. That's only for people who like are like hardcore TCG players, like
Yeah, I
almost
mean,
full time in that.
I am, but it was just like, man, by the honestly, what it turned for me is by the time it came out, I just already had like the plans that to
Yeah, yeah,
do,
of course, of
like
course.
because we have a convention here that weekend, and we're just like, oh, like by the time it all came together, it's like we're already all in on this convention, so it's like it
Hmm.
just couldn't happen. But had we had the details earlier, had we known what was going on, there was a very good chance I would have chose Paris. So it is what it
Yeah,
is.
they
Next year,
they need to improve that next year. That was
absolutely,
horrible. That was
yeah.
horrible.
I mean, even for us, we got NA details yesterday, which is I
Yeah,
mean,
that
like,
was crazy. And it's literally the same, besides
what do we
that
got?
you
6
only have
weeks,
one.
7 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
It's way longer than you guys had.
But still, it's literally the same, but
Yeah.
that you don't have the opportunity to play it twice. You only can play
Yeah,
once.
we're just one
Yeah.
fell swoop on a DLC, on a LCQ. It's like, yep, that's it. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of fine. If I'm being completely honest, like, yeah, I get that you can LCQ twice, which is cool, for Europe. But in the end, I like the idea of like, hey, we're all in on a 5-0 or not, and that's fine.
Mhm.
I live that life in January, and I'll just accept it.
Yeah, good luck for that.
Thank you. Good luck next weekend. Thank you for joining me. Again, follow all of his socials will be in the description below. If you guys enjoyed the content like this, make sure you hit like for me. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. See you.
Bye.